tell us what is one story that truly changed you while creating change for others.
So actually, when I turned 18 for my 18th birthday, I decided to become a big sister for an American program called Big Brothers Big Sisters. And they had a huge waiting list, particularly among males. Um,
Hmm.
and it really did two things. One, it helped me walk.
And what are some of the biggest myths about social change that you have
Uh,
seen leaders fall for?
I think the other one is really we need a better solution. So people get very solution oriented versus problem focused. And so in my classes, I talk about falling in love with the problem and not the solution.
Mhm.
Um, Most of the time, people want to start institutions or they jump to the solution rather than talking to the community or getting more information and getting curious about the problem. And sometimes that will lead you to a different solution that is actually more sustainable.
And how has Gen Z reshaped the conversation around social responsibility?
I think they have, and using the oil change story as an example, Gen Z wants you to do it with receipts. Like, you
Mm.
can't just say you're helping somebody. They want to actually know you're doing it. They want to know how much money it is. They want to, talk is talk, action is action. And so that's one of the things I most appreciate is that, sometimes I have been pleasantly surprised by my Gen Z students who do the background research behind every dollar they spend and say, is this company really doing what they need to be doing? And if you look at companies here in the United States, you definitely see companies who have been canceled or are not popular anymore because of things they've done that Gen Z felt like wasn't the right direction to go.
So, folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording. And we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak. And here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future. And we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host, Naveen Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So, folks, welcome to yet another episode of the Guiding Voice podcast series. And today we are joined by Suzanne Smith, who is a nationally recognized community strategist, professor, TEDx speaker, and founder of Social Impact Architects. With almost 3 decades of experience driving social change across business, governments, and also non-profits, Susan blends business acumen with social purpose. And through her acclaimed blog, Social Trend Spotter, and also TEDx Talk, everyone can be a change maker. She empowers leaders as well as citizens alike to create lasting and, most importantly, meaningful impact. And Susan, we are pleased to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm so thrilled to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
Most welcome. And the feeling is mutual. And Susan, talk to us about why do you think somebody should spend their valuable time and listen or watch our episode today?
We're going to challenge a myth, the myth that you have to have a big checkbook or a big title in order to make change. And that really the future belongs to ordinary people who are taking that smart spark within for purpose and legacy and doing extraordinary work.
Amazing. So, I think this is one of the most important topics. So, folks, today we are going to dive deeply into a conversation on the topic at hand. Why billionaires can't save the world, but you can. Sounds interesting, isn't it? But before we get started, here's an exciting twist. As always, let us tickle our guest's brain first. So, Susan, get ready for the rapid fire round number one. Yes, you heard it right. There is one more
Love it.
rapid fire toward the end. I'm going to mention a few words and would love to hear the first response that comes. Okay? All right. So, my first word to you is curiosity,
My superpower,
invention,
the bridge between pain point and pain reliever.
future,
My favorite quote, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, and take what comes.
wow, universe,
Trust the universe.
l- leadership.
Followership.
I love it. Success.
Significance with receipts.
Wow. Amazing. Aliens.
Don't believe in them.
Role model.
Hmm. A tie between my parents.
Wow. Life.
Uh, life is wonderful.
Okay, here comes the last word, career.
Architect.
Wow. Simply amazing. Thank you so much for participating in the rapid fire round number one. And I appreciate you being part of our journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. All right. So, Suzanne, we'll get into the mainstream. Talk to us about who is your guiding voice.
So this goes back to the conversation around role model. So I would say my parents. So we would
Hmm.
get together at the end of every day around the dinner table, and I still hear the voices in my head. They're still around, so those voices still continue. And if I had a really bad day, let's say I got a lower grade than I wanted or didn't get picked for a team, my mom would be the compassion in the room and would talk about how does this make you feel? And then I'd feel the feelings I needed to feel the support. And then my father would kind of revert to, now, what are you going to do differently tomorrow?
Hmm.
And so I kind of have that guiding force between the two. And so I jokingly say I was raised by Brene Brown and Ted Lasso. So between the two of them, that's really the voice that I hear for myself is to bounce back from things that don't work out the way I initially hoped.
I love the metaphor. And in fact, you are lucky to have parents like that. And Suzanne,
Mhm.
what is your success mantra, as in top three things that have contributed to your success so far?
So I always talk about it as clarity, capacity, and courage. So to me, I think, and this goes back to my word curiosity. To me, I just love getting to the root of anything. So
Mm-hmm.
why I'm doing things, why the world is the way it is, and I try not to bring judgment into it as much as possible. I think that's the MBA in me. I think capacity. I'm like my grandmother. I'm a patchwork quilt of everybody I've ever met. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody has something to teach me. So I
Yeah.
arm myself with the tools. And then lastly, I think you need courage, taking those bold risks.
Mm-hmm.
But as I tell my students, don't take those bold risks without really a strategy behind it. So
Mm-hmm.
risk for risk's sake doesn't make sense, but really thinking about the strategy behind them so that you can try to be as successful as possible out of the gate.
Yeah. Got it. And your TEDx talk, right? Everyone can be a change maker. It has inspired
Yeah.
many people across the globe. So tell us, what is one story that truly changed you while creating change for others?
The one that I think occurs to me is uh, I had, of course, an upbringing that was really wonderful, American middle class, and when you're growing up, you assume your upbringing is like everybody else's. And so,
Mm-hmm.
as I was growing up and I was a teenager, I realized that what I was experiencing was unique, and that in many ways I had won kind of the genetic lottery, because I got the
Mm-hmm.
parents that I got. So actually, when I turned 18 for my 18th birthday, I decided to become a big sister for an American program called Big Brothers Big Sisters. And they had a huge waiting list, particularly among males. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it really did two things. One, it helped me walk in the shoes of the people that didn't win the genetic lottery and realize how those small things can make a difference. But I, of course, thought I was helping her, but she actually really helped me, and that really spurred me on this journey of recognizing that you do get this helper's high, and that when you help other people, you're actually helping yourself. So it gave me a greater understanding of how the entire world was and how giving back can really help both the giver and the receiver.
Right. Got it. And you say that billionaires can't change the world, but you can. So, what moment
Yeah.
made you realize that ordinary people could drive extraordinary change?
It's interesting. I was thinking about moments. And I think to me, I'm really lucky because every single part of my day, I get to work with nonprofit leaders. And in many ways, they're my version of a superhero. And
Hmm.
so when I talk about the billionaires or others, people who are making a difference, I really think about these people who are at the grassroots level. In the US, we just had a shutdown, and there are people who were going to work and helping out people, double the amount of people they typically did because demand was higher. During COVID, there were people who were putting their lives at risk because they were helping people, delivering meals, being involved. So to me, it's the everyday people who don't always get the spotlight. So they don't make the headlines, but they make a difference. The caseworkers, the nurses, the volunteers, the teachers, those are the people who, if I look back on my life and the people who made the greatest difference to me, those are the people who, to me, in those moments made a difference.
Yeah, got it. And what are some of the biggest myths about social change that you have
Uh,
seen leaders fall for?
So now we're getting to the good myths. So I think the biggest one is we see all the headlines. So Mackenzie Scott or Bill Gates or different people giving money. And one of the biggest myths is you need money. And I do think that just like anything, money helps fuel the ideas. But really, you got to start with impact. And money should follow impact. In Texas, we call that the sizzle and the steak. Like everything
Mhm.
you do to try to make a difference in the world should be stake oriented. And then the money is just an opportunity to bring that to life. So that's the first myth that you need money. I think the second myth is people sometimes are waiting on the world to change, and people think change comes from institutions. And really, institutions are the ones that are built of people. And so movements actually start with people. So I actually have a video I show in my class called First Follower. And, the person who starts a movement, right, really is a lone nut until other people decide to follow him, her, or they. And so, from my perspective, it's really people who start those things. And so that's why I say everyone is a change maker. I think the other one is really we need a better solution. So people get very solution oriented versus problem focused. And so in my classes, I talk about falling in love with the problem and not the solution.
Mhm.
Um, Most of the time, people want to start institutions or they jump to the solution rather than talking to the community or getting more information and getting curious about the problem. And sometimes that will lead you to a different solution that is actually more sustainable.
Yeah, got it. And also, you have often said purpose isn't charity, but it's strategy. So, can you unpack what means for modern organizations?
Mm. So this goes back to, we've been talking about nonprofits a whole lot, but
Hmm.
in many places in the globe, US included, India as well, we are now really challenging businesses to say, you need to be part of the difference too. And so we now have nonprofits, government, and business at the center of social change. And I really welcome that because I think we've got a lot of issues we're trying to solve for. And so another element that I teach is really helping businesses know how they can make a difference. And so part of it is that we see more and more customers wanting to choose purpose oriented businesses. So making a choice between one business versus the other, because one business is connected to purpose. We also see employees who are wanting to choose
Hmm.
businesses who have purpose. And so to me, there is a lot of evidence that actually says the businesses who are driven not only by profit but also purpose actually are more sustainable. Um,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
that's really part of what I'm encouraging a lot of businesses to do is instead of kind of doing the what we call PR, doing
Hmm.
good for good PR, actually just embedding purpose in your DNA.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. It makes sense actually. So, something which is driven through DNA, something which is comes from inside that lasts a long time, right? Amazing. And
Right.
also, how
That's right.
can businesses integrate social impact authentically without it feeling like CSR for show or as a checkmark exercise?
That's such a good question. The research that I have now, interestingly enough, is about 60% of the new businesses in the United States actually are kind of embedding it into their DNA. And so as you look at Gen Z and millennials starting businesses, it is just part of who they are in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So really I connect with them on four things. One, connect it to your core, connect it to something that is really good. Don't just bolt it on to the side. Toyota is a good example of that. So Toyota is really great at Six Sigma and Kaizen. And so what they
Yeah.
do is they give back to the community, train food banks, train other people to do what they do on the assembly line. So try to give back in something that you're actually really good at. Try to
Hmm.
make it as concrete as possible. I think a lot of businesses sometimes will do what I call checkbook philanthropy, where they'll just write checks to everybody who asks,
Hmm.
versus really, specifically choosing a lane, defining the problem that you're trying to solve, and committing focused resources to it. So it could be looking down the street and seeing that there's a school in need and doing everything you can over the course of a whole year to really help that school.
Yeah.
I would also stay humble and be really clear. So
Mm-hmm.
most businesses are not experts on social change. Don't come in with a savior complex and say we're going to solve for every issue the school has. Talk to the principal, talk to the teachers, and really, partner with them on where you could potentially help, and then just commit to it. So to me, it's all about persistence.
Yeah.
Not going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. Social change does not happen overnight. And so anything you choose, you're going to need to kind of roll up your sleeves over a continuous basis in order to see that there's actually going to be change in the community.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. And also, Susan, what are some global companies that are getting this balance between profit as well as purpose in a right way?
There's a lot of really great brands. So I'm a benefit corporation, and there's a lot of good brands that
Hmm.
are in that family. So like Patagonia and others. And I think so. Anyone that has that B on their
Hmm.
logo, and they're usually very proud of it, just like I am on my website. I would absolutely recommend any of them. And so you can go to the
Hmm.
B Corporation website and choose those folks. I think there are others from a culture perspective have that instinct within them. So Ben and Jerry's ice cream, I think, is a great one. I'm a big fan of Southwest Airlines. I'm part of the Southwest Airlines family. My husband's a pilot. I think they've got it really embedded into their ethos. And then I'm going to do
Hmm.
this with a little bit of a twist because this is not a global company. Because I do think one of the myths I want to bust is that it has to be a global company. And so I want to share a quick story, if it's okay, about a small business that made a difference. And so I had someone who came to one of my talks, and he had started a chain of places who did oil changes. So oil changes for like $22, and you just come in and you leave. And he's like, "Well, what can I do?" And I said, "Well, there's lots of after school programs around your area. You've got a number of them. Choose one after school program and go support them." And so he did. He went to the leader of that after school program and provided them a free oil change. And so they never ended up having to pay for those oil changes, which actually was significant. And then he said, "Well, I
Hmm.
want to do more." So he ended up going to all of his friends who own tire companies and other auto mechanics around the area, and they completely had every aspect of their van taken care of. They got free gas, they got free oil changes, free tires anytime they needed it. And then he's like, "Well, I want to do more." And he started spending
Yeah.
time with the kids, and he actually spent time with them actually teaching auto mechanics to the kids.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
he just loved it. And actually, during the latest giving day, if you walked in, you could actually see pictures of all this that was going
Hmm.
on. And he was encouraging people to round up. So instead of giving $22, they gave $25 to donate to the after school program. And now he actually serves on their board, and actually
Right.
encourages other people to donate. And so
Hmm.
it just really defies the myth that you have to have lots of money, you have to work for a Fortune 500 company. Anybody could make a difference. And so he really, I think, to me, exemplified that you just find the talent that you have and you just apply it to some small part of the world. And I think it's such a significant difference he's making.
Yeah. Got it. And how has Gen Z reshaped the conversation around social responsibility?
I think they have, and using the oil change story as an example, Gen Z wants you to do it with receipts. Like, you
Mm.
can't just say you're helping somebody. They want to actually know you're doing it. They want to know how much money it is. They want to, talk is talk, action is action. And so that's one of the things I most appreciate is that, sometimes I have been pleasantly surprised by my Gen Z students who do the
Mhm.
background research behind every dollar they spend and say, is this company really doing what they need to be doing? And if you look at companies here in the United States, you definitely see companies who have been canceled or are not popular anymore because of things they've done that
Yes.
Gen Z felt like wasn't the right direction to go.
Yeah.
And then they've also followed it up with where they want to work. And
Hmm.
so it is definitely becoming a business risk if you don't actually follow through on the things you're supposed to do, or if your values are not embedded in who you are. And
Right.
so I think that'll be an interesting thing as Gen Z continues to rise up and is a higher amount of has higher purchasing power. So I think we're going to see even more of that in the upcoming years.
Absolutely. And also, in your experience, what is the ROI of doing good, both in terms of companies and also for individuals?
I love that you're asking this because I look at ROI not just return on investment, but return on impact. Because
It-
at the end of the
Love
day,
it.
I'm an MBA. So I'm not saying to a company, do this because it feels good. I'm saying do this because the research supports that you can do good and it actually improves your profit margin. And of course, your profit margin can then be turned into better salaries for your employees, better profitability, more jobs for your community. All of that stuff matters to me. So you
Mm.
definitely see it in improved employee retention. So there's lots of good evidence around that. Certainly increased customer loyalty, as was mentioned earlier. I know I choose a lot of products based on their corporate values, the things that they communicate to me, but also the work that we've done. In fact, in one of my classes, they have dueling brands, and so it's Southwest versus American or Pepsi versus Coke, and they look up what's going on, and they actually say, did they actually follow through on this thing? Who is doing the right things based on corporate social responsibility and ESG. I also
Mhm.
think it improves your innovation pipeline. There's a lot of really good evidence by researchers saying that it actually increases levels of innovation. So Johnson and Johnson, for example, they recognized that some of their machines were becoming outdated in developed countries, and rather than turning them over to a landfill, they actually fixed them and they actually donated them to developing countries who did not have those machines. So think about machines for mammograms and others that could be refurbished, and
Yeah.
so it actually allowed for more of their machines to be around, for them to innovate around how to do this very complex medical stuff across different areas of the globe. And so I think there's ways that you can think through your business model in new and different ways. You're probably familiar with bottom of the pyramid strategies as well. So how do
Yeah.
you break down what you're actually doing and actually supplying it to anybody across the globe? And then, of course, I've mentioned the helper's high. So I'll break that down just a little bit. I think as individuals, the research is very clear that when we give back, we get something called the helper's high. It reduces depression and increases happiness. I think it's better relationships. I encourage couples and families to volunteer together. It's a great bonding activity. I just got done with another podcast where I was talking to fraternities, sororities, and saying that they should be volunteering together. It's a great teamwork activity. And then at the end of the day, all of us are here because we want meaning in our lives. And so if you give back, you have something that is really meaningful. And those
Yeah.
meaningful connections and those relationships, which we were lacking during COVID. We came out of the COVID cocoon. We needed more connection. We're hardwired as human beings to need connection, and so helping somebody gives us that connection to someone. And so I think those are so many important reasons why helping is good for the individual as well as the company.
Wow. Simply intriguing and impactful conversation so far. And it's time for us to add some more spice and excitement to the episode. If you're ready, let's get started with the second rapid fire round. Okay, I take that
I love
as
it.
yes. All right. So if you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Everyone's a change maker. Start today.
Wow. And can you describe yourself in just one word?
It would have to be strategic.
Wow. And your favorite TEDx talk other than your own?
Well, I'll mention my shero, Brene Brown, her iconic speech, "The Power of Vulnerability."
Yeah. Yeah. And a book that changed your perspective on leadership.
I've always loved Good to Great. I think it was really about results, and I think
Mhm.
Good to Great and that level 5 leadership, it's something that stuck with me.
All right. And if you could design a superhero for social change, right, what would their power be?
You have such good questions. I think I would choose radical empathy, so the
Wow.
ability to see the world through anybody's eyes, so being able to be a true empath.
Simply powerful. I wish we get that kind of superpower.
There have been some people, Gandhi, Mother Teresa. I think there were a number of people who probably
Yeah,
had that, but if you needed
absolutely.
a superhero for today, that would be what I
Yeah,
would choose.
yeah, absolutely. And Suzanne, the most misunderstood concept about philanthropy.
It's always about the money. People think money makes the world go round, and I just don't think it does. I think it's about participation, people. It's about love. It's about all of those things. And so I think money helps, but it
Hmm.
is merely the fuel behind social
Right.
change. People are more important.
Yeah. And if you had one hashtag to describe your life's work, what would it be?
Well, you get the exclusive because I think I have a new hashtag that I'm trying out. So you can tell me if you like it. So dream big, build better.
Wow. Simply superb. Dream big,
That's my hashtag.
build
Dream
better.
big, build better. What do you think?
I, I love it. I love it. Simply superb.
Good.
And your favorite quote on purpose.
So I've always loved Picasso's quote that the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away. I've always thought that was so um, inspirational.
Hmm. And last one for the rapid fire round. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you like to see or invent yourself?
I this is a fun one for me because I would love a BS detector. So when people, it's almost like a lie detector, but it's not just truth and lies. It's when people are BSing you about stuff
Uh-huh.
or whitewashing things, and so I think that would be a lot of fun.
Hmm. All right. Superb. I love it. And again, that's also another innovative thought. And after that amazing second rapid fire round, let's flip back to the mainstream. So, Susan, what are the three biggest social trends you foresee shaping the next decade?
I do a blog called Social Trend Spotter, and so I think a lot about trends. So I have a little bit of an advantage on this one. And I do think that part of my gift is also kind of seeing into the future and really figuring out, like, how in the now, what do we need to do about it? So I
Mm-hmm.
think the one thing is around trust. I think we are kind of having an existential crisis around trust.
Mm,
And I'm hoping we're going to go back to a place where we can trust each other, we can trust our institutions. And I think we have kind of receded away from that. So we have what I call a trust recession. I also think one of the trends I'm hoping to see, and I have a colleague called Jim Fruchterman, and he actually just has written a book about this, but it's tech for good. So how do
mhm.
we take all of these smart people in the technology space and have them really think deeply about the impact of their work and the social good, and really making sure tech and ethics kind of go hand in hand. So tech for good. And then I'm really hoping, and I am, part of the movement associated with this, and I hope you will join, is kind of citizen change making. The fact that
Absolutely.
everybody can be a
Mhm.
change maker. We don't need to just trust the billionaires or the institutions to change the world. It can be micro things that you do in your neighborhood, in your community that have huge impact. And then they, create a ripple effect. And I'm also hoping that it allows us to move away from doom scrolling to hope scrolling,
Mhm.
so that way people are getting more hope on their social media algorithm and not, living in this place of doom. Because I think there's lots of good people out there doing great things. We're just not giving them good PR. They just don't have publicists. So if we
Absolutely.
can use our um, talents to publicize the good, I think that will change our algorithm.
Okay. This actually reminded me of a podcaston event, okay, which is happening early 2026, and wherein group of podcasters across the globe have come together, and we are going to feature one not-for-profit organization who are really driving social impact and all. As you said, there are good people, just that we are not aware of who they are. That's it, and we have to bring limelight. And definitely, if you have any recommendation in terms of me hosting somebody who is running a great not-for-profit, I would love to host them as part of podcast on event. So please refer me somebody. And Suzanne, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Very, very
Absolutely.
thoughtful, impactful. And how is your experience being hosted on TGV, the Guiding Voice?
Well, thank you for all your good questions. They were very thoughtful, and I so enjoyed it. It was good to get me spark my thinking on a number of things.
Most welcome. And I wish you all the very best. And please continue the amazing work that you are doing. And look forward to hosting you again in future. Thank you once again. All right.
Absolutely.
So, friends, that was our episode with Suzanne Smith. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. If you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, request you to share with at least three of your friends who would also like TGV, the guiding voice, to spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you. Now it's time for us to hop into the trivia segment. And today's trivia is about the social impact. And I would like to share a few facts. Fact number one: did you know that over 70% of consumers today prefer to buy from brands that actively contribute to social or environmental causes? And number two, according to the United Nations, small and medium enterprises collectively have a greater impact on achieving sustainability goals than larger corporations combined. Mind blowing. Number three, studies show that employees working for purpose driven companies report 64% higher job fulfillment and 50% more engagement. And fact number four, the term social entrepreneur, right? It was first popularized in the 1980s, but has seen a 10x raise in online searches since 2015. And the last fact is that it takes three consistent acts of kindness to trigger a measurable rise in happiness and connection, scientifically proving Susan's idea. Small acts create big ripples. And I think the high rise that we get by contributing, that takes us a long way. So, folks, that's it for today from trivia perspective. Likewise, if you're aware of any social change maker who is doing some amazing stuff, do tag them on social media. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can comment there as well. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So until next time. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.